What is up, my cutouts? Cardboard Ninja here, coming at you with a update with Mad Chase. So a lot of people are wondering, hey, wait a minute, I'm able to do a gajillion damage with the Jotun and the Acari and all stuff like that. Well, here's the reason why. Did you see all those shots that did 0 damage? Here's the reason why you're able to do that. It's not because of you're doing a ton of damage to the actual parts of the vehicle. You're dealing damage to things that are supposed to be invulnerable. So here's the idea. When Gaijin, Targum, or what have you, when they made the game, they don't want you to be able to remove the movement parts of this vehicle, right? So obviously I'm not going to win this match, but that doesn't matter. What matters is the learning lesson. So they don't want me to be able to remove the movement parts of the vehicle. So they made them invulnerable. The frame is also invulnerable. It's purely invulnerable. It can take no damage. Notice how I did 51 damage in that burst, but all of those shots landed on the wheels? Does nothing. 0 damage, 0 damage. But if I hit anything other than that, I do damage. Standard damage, etc., right? So here's the reason why the Jotun Acari combo is actually producing extreme numbers. So the objects that are invulnerable, in order to ensure their invulnerability, they also increased the durability of them to millions. So each of the wheels, all of the frame on both of those leviathans over there have tons and tons and tons and tons of durability. And it's also invulnerable. So when you attempt to deal damage, even with the Acari, it's not going to do anything because it's 100% damage reduction. And so 100% damage reduction means it takes 0 damage. Here's the deal. The frost effect, as you know the frost effect to do, or at least if you don't, you're about to know what the frost effect does. The effect of frost in the game. Smash cut. All right, so my audio died, apparently, turned into crap. I actually refilmed this once already, but I decided to check the video before I uploaded it, and it so turns out audio died a second time. Outstanding bullshit. But I'm going to keep my problems to me, as that's why they're called my problems. So, without further ado, how does heating and cooling work? Obviously, the game mechanics guide lets you know what it is. That's why we came over here. So it says, depending on the degree of heating, the part receives up to 100% more damage. Or alternatively, which is to say freezing, reduces the effectiveness of various ways of reducing the received damage, aka damage resistance and damage protection. I have a video about that. You guys can, go through that if you guys are so interested. Down to 0%. Additionally, it says a part cannot both be heated and frozen at the same time. These states transition into each other. I will explain that later. So, what ends up happening is this. The parts on the Leviathan that you saw that were taking 0 damage, including frame and wheels, are invulnerable. They have 100% damage resistance. 100%. Just straight up, they cannot be damaged. You saw 0 damage going into them, they take nothing. In addition to that, because the devs want to make sure that Leviathans cannot have their wheels removed, they further gave the wheels and the frame millions of hit points. So even if you are able to remove the damage resistance or damage protection, in this instance it would be damage resistance, from the wheels, they still have millions of hit points. So the numbers that you're getting from the Acari, which perk of the Acari is, it deals damage, or at least the effect of the Acari is, it deals damage to all parts based on a percentage of those parts' current hit points. So the reason why you're getting those big numbers is because you're now hitting parts that with the incinerator you weren't able to hit before. So if you hit someone with the incinerator, you would increase the damage up to 100% of what the current damage that it could take is. So damage resistance and damage protection applies first, and then afterwards the damage multiplier comes in. So if something has 100% damage resistance and takes 0 damage, and you heat it to 100%, it will receive 100% of 0 damage. That's the reason why when you combine the Acari and the incinerator, you get damage numbers that are big, sure, but they're not incredibly insane like the Jotuns, because the Jotun is allowing the Acari to access a pool of hit points that the incinerator can never allow you to access. So here's the deal. Everybody's looking at these big numbers and thinking that they're killing Leviathan faster. You're assuming this because you're seeing bigger numbers. That makes sense. Fair enough. But here's the deal. You're not. The rub is, with incinerators, you will actually kill the Leviathan sooner. Even if you're using the Acari or just double incinerator, doesn't matter. You'll kill the Leviathan faster, assuming you're evenly skilled, which is to say you land all your shots with both. You'll kill the Leviathan faster with heat than with cold. Because heat, in almost all circumstances, outdamages cold. The parts that become vulnerable to damage do not count towards the Leviathan's hit points. They don't count to its actual durability. That's why we're even able to destroy the Leviathan in the first place, even though the Leviathan has these invulnerable parts on it. So opening the pool of hit points for your Acari to damage to include frame and wheels does not actually make it so you kill the Leviathan any faster. Larger damage numbers will be posted, but it's actually not dying faster. Believe it or not, the bonus damage from fire actually makes it so you kill levies faster. Another side note, there was a comment in another person's video section about heating and cooling, and this goes to the explanation here, saying that a part cannot both be heated but be frozen and heated at the same time. These states transition into each other. What it means by this is there is a spectrum from neutral, which is where we are now, to negative, which is cold, to positive, which is heat, and you can only have 100% in the negative or 100% in the positive. That's it. Each weapon has its own cooling or heating rate. Each weapon that can provide heating or cooling. And it's kind of like a tug of war. So let's assume you apply 10% heat, but then you shoot it with 5% cold. Well, you are left with 5% heat. So someone asked in these comments that were in a video that was not my own, hey, maybe you should use both. Never under any circumstances do you combine both, ever. You're making one worse, and the one that you're making worse is the heating. And the reason why is, and I'll make a video about this. I know I've said I'm going to make a video about this. It explains the heating and cooling mechanics into a much better degree here. But the idea is that heating happens, in general, faster than cooling happens. An example, Incinerator versus Jotun. The Incinerator, before they buffed the Jotun, they did buff it. The Incinerator, before they buffed the Jotun, heated over twice as fast as the Jotun cooled. So before they buffed the Jotun recently, you needed 2 ice pools to cool still slower than the Incinerator heated. And if you want to know, the Incinerator heats 10% per tick, 2 ticks a second, 20 ticks over 10 seconds, basically. And the Jotun also ticks 20 times, but cools at a rate of about 6%. So if you throw fire puddle down at the exact same place as you throw an ice puddle, you will end up with a positive heat gain of like 4% per tick, which means that after 20 ticks, assuming that something's in there for the entire time, it's going to have around 80% heat. Whereas you could have had that 80% heat at 8 seconds. You should never, under any circumstances, use fire and ice at the same time. They are antitheses to each other. Every percent cold you add removes 1% heat until heat is at 0, and then it starts adding cold stacks. And every 1% heat that you add does the exact same thing in the other direction. So if you have a cooled cabin or cooled parts and it's down to like basically 50% cold, and then you apply 5% heat, well, now it's just down to 45% cold. They work against each other, and you should never use them at the same time. Ever. It is not to your benefit. It will only be to the benefit of your opponents. It's the equivalent of just muting your debuffs, just making it so your debuffs are less effective. And yes, the Jotun does do AoE damage throughout an entire build, and yes, the Incinerator does AoE damage throughout the entire build, but the damage they deal per tick is extraordinarily low. It's 3, right? So if you're using the Jotun or the Incinerator to deal damage, you're fucking it up. You're messing it up. You're doing it wrong. That's not what you're supposed to be doing. It is an accessory to damage. All right, so hopefully I've been able to answer everything about heating and cooling, and as to why the Jotun is now dealing incredible amounts of damage when combined with the Acari against Leviathans, and hopefully third time's the goddamn charm, and my audio doesn't F up, because I'm not recording this again. I'm just not. I'm not going to record it again. I've done this 3 times for you people, and yes, you people, I know you know who you people are. I've done this 3 times for you people, so I hope that you guys are grateful. All right, guys. Peace.